I think she's in Britain, right? Or it's late there.
Logical. It's the moral thing, because if we can't prove the material harms, we shouldn't discourage it. And also, self-reported studies is a really flawed way to do psychology. It's the week before my university exams right now, and I'm standing here explaining the basic methodology behind survey collection in sociology, which you don't even think is a real subject, to Charlie Kirk. If I took one of those surveys right now, I'd check extremely miserable, but so would a Palestinian child who's been torn to smithereens. How are we going to
say extremely miserable?
I just don't. Do you see what I mean? This is... She's kind of proven my point. If she would check extremely miserable living in like the West, you know what I mean? Like one of the best universities in the world. And we still find a way to check miserable. Do you know what I mean? It's like, it's our base. All right. We don't need to roast me on the technology. Okay. I saw somebody say in the chat, they're like, Pearl, your intro's too long. Well, why don't you start a YouTube show and make your own intro? Okay, and you can have a short intro. I'll give you that, all right? I love you guys. I love you guys. But sometimes I gotta give it back to you. You know what I mean?
No, I'm kind of making a joke.
No, I mean, but seriously, like, but hold on. I mean, like, that's an important point, though, is that the women in the West have it the best in the world, and yet they're way unhappier than women of sub-Saharan Africa. There's something fundamentally wrong here.
See, I don't think Charlie Kirk knows what he's talking about. I don't know. The women in Africa, they're kind of doing the same thing. I was in London. I interviewed a lot of the people from these countries. A lot of the women in these countries, they're maybe 10 years behind, but the westernization is coming.
Women of sub-Saharan Africa have something that a lot of women in the West do not have. The women in the West have cats and they have good jobs. And the women of sub-Saharan Africa, they have a belief in the divine and they have kids. And maybe there's a biological
Yeah, I don't agree. You know, I think an unhappy person is just going to be an unhappy person with the kid. Because how many of you guys had crazy mothers? Put a 1 in the chat if you had a crazy mother who was not happy and then she had you when she was still unhappy. I do go live every night. It's called putting in the work, okay? Putting in the work.
That is keeping a lot of women from realizing their full potential. And so without reading your phone and just like, you know, connecting.
I'm not really reading my phone.
Well, it's fine. Sure. Then you can answer.
That was a gaslight. Tilly, what do you mean you're not reading your phone?
Fair enough. Would you agree that it's a good thing that more women get married and have children in the West?
I would ask you, would you say that a sub-Saharan African woman who's experienced female genital mutilation and checks extremely happy in a survey, and I also would check extremely happy in a survey, who do you think would be objectively more happy, even if they both check the same answer?
No, again, so I fully, if you want to talk about how Islam mistreats women, we could talk all day long. Like I'm all for that.
Me too.
Okay, good. So we agree. We actually have agreement.
Anything.
My mother literally said to me, not mine, but in the chat, someone said, when I was a little kid, by the time you were born, we'd given up on raising kids. It was not the night. Yeah.
Not allow evangelical Christians.
Well, okay. Hold on. So hold on a second. Hold on. That's funny. Hold on.
Can I tell you why my channel sucks? I did actually. Last session, I ripped apart some of the thumbnails. I'll even go through my videos and why I don't think they performed, right? So. Want me to wear a hijab every Tuesday? Are you guys insane?
Hey, sorry to cut you off. Tilly is on. Tilly, if you could just unmute, then we'll be good to go.
Everybody can hear me? Okay.
I can hear you. How's it going, Tilly?
It's going great. Thank you for having me on. It's really interesting that you agreed with some of the things that I said in the debate, even though we're ideologically probably super opposed, right?
Well, I don't know. I don't know too much about you other than this debate. So you probably have seen some of my stuff, but I don't know how long you've been doing this, but yeah. It's been a couple. So you're at Oxford now? What time is it there? It's late, isn't it?
Well, I go to Cambridge University, but yeah, it's pretty late here. It's 1:23 in the morning. I have like this huge Pepsi to keep me awake.
Okay, well, I'm glad you made it. Thanks so much for coming.
No problem.
So what got you into debates? Like, what are you on the debate team there, or what's your background?
I started debating when I was about 17.
Okay.
And I ended up as a reserve for the national English team. And from there, I've debated kind of mostly informally. I haven't taken debate too seriously. And then when I debated Charlie Kirk, I started taking it a little bit more seriously because that kind of blew up and I didn't expect it to blow up to that extent.
Okay, cool. Are you going to start a channel now or no?
Trying to start a YouTube channel. But I mean, you'll know your guy had to talk me through how to even start this stream. So it's going to be a slow process. I think I'm terrible with tech.
Oh, I am too, actually. So it's no big deal. So can you give me a little overview of like your worldview? So you're a feminist. You believe in marriage. You don't believe in marriage. Women are oppressed. Men are oppressed. Can you give me like a spark notes? Do you mind or no?
A spark notes. Yeah, sure. I think when you sent me a few of those claims, I was quite interested because to me, they felt a little bit ambiguous. So for example, when you sent me the claim of asking me whether or not I believed in marriage, I was thinking, well, sure, I believe that marriage makes men happier, according to statistics. As we both kind of agree, the self-reported studies are a little bit flawed. But if we were to use self-reported studies, if we were to use that metric, marriage does make men happier. I also think that marriage as a contract between like a virgin and a rich guy is a little bit antiquated. In the same way that, for example, people getting married as a political alliance or out of obligation to people's family, I think those things are a little bit antiquated as well. I think that in terms of if we want to think about who's more oppressed, men or women, I think that it's potentially a slight distraction from other issues. For example, I think that poor people are all oppressed, and I would never want to minimize like men's issues when it comes to being poor. But I think that overall, there are certain facts about being a woman that make it more difficult for us existing in society, I would say. So I guess we can kind of delve deeper into it. I didn't necessarily prepare like this summary of my worldview, but I think overall
that's all right. I mean, I'm just trying to have a conversation with you. This isn't like a gotcha type thing. I'm just trying to have a conversation. So it kind of would help me to understand your worldview a little bit. When you come to conclusions about what you believe, do you go to studies first or what you see in the world? What comes first?
I mean, that's actually a really good question. I appreciate that question. I think that it's silly to rely solely on either metric. If I solely said, well, based on my personal experiences, I believe this thing, then I would have all kinds of incorrect beliefs, right? Because I have personal experiences that don't match up with what lots of other people's personal experiences might be. So I'm not going to solely rely on them, but at the same time, I'm not going to completely cast them aside. Because, for example, as a woman who's experienced being a woman, I'm not going to completely cast aside my anecdotal experiences there. At the same time, you know, I also think that studies are really important, but it depends who's conducted the study. It depends on the methodology behind the study. I'm a studies fan. I'm a bit of a nerd about that. I mean, part of my political science degree concerns like methodology surrounding studies. So,
okay. So what comes first? If the study conflicts with your personal experience, what do you pick?
I think I'm always open to being wrong. I think that the most important thing is that you can falsify any claim. So
yeah, okay. Because me personally, I go with what I can see in the world first. I do like studies, but I think the longer you're in this industry, you see a lot of people funding them have agendas. Would you agree with that?
To some extent, yeah. I think, for
Okay.
example, you have think tanks. I mean, organizations like Turning Point USA that want to promote traditional values or disseminate certain conservative ideas across college campuses. When they come out with a study about how actually the evils of birth control, I might take a little pause and question it there. In the same way as if you have this super liberal institution that says
Yeah, correct.
something about how some people are like ultra perfect and ultra happy like all the time, and that feminism can do no wrong, and that all women are like saints. Obviously, I'm going to call that into question, but I think that's a little bit less. I think that's a little bit less likely, but I'm sure that you might disagree with that.
Okay. So why don't we tackle marriage first, and we can kind of go back and forth about where we agree, where we disagree, and then cool. Okay, so you believe in marriage or you don't believe in marriage?
Can I just qualify that question and ask what you mean? I don't want to pull a Jordan Peterson, but like, what do you mean by believe?
What do you think is the purpose of marriage?
Good question. I think the purpose of marriage is some kind of partnership where both of you are a team, and in the process of becoming a team, you have certain legal protections enforced.
Okay, cool. What do you think a woman gets out of marriage?
I mean, it kind of depends on all kinds of factors, right? Like, I believe that marriage is something that is like super intersubjective because it concerns relationships. Like, we can make broad sweeping statements about what it means for a woman to be married, what it means for a man to be married. I think women can get quite a lot from marriage. I think, generally speaking, though, men tend to get a bit more. And the evidence that I have for that is that married men, according to the CDC, they live about 8 to 17% longer than unmarried men. And also that women receive.
And you attribute that to marriage.
I think there are probably confounding factors like financial stability that comes from marriage. But it's also true that people who work together and have a relationship and get married.
Let's go with what you see in the real world. Like, you're in college, you see your friends who they go for, right? Who they're interested in maybe marrying someday, dating, or selecting for romantic relationships.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you say that they select guys that are in shape? Like, just in general? Like the in shape guy is going to get more dates than the 300-pound guy.
Do you think a 300-pound woman is probably going to have the same experience on the dating market?
Correct. I agree, but
yeah, probably.
So for me, I wouldn't really attribute men living longer to marriage. I think fit men are chosen. And I think a lot of times, like the conservative, and I'm actually going to go at the conservatives. I think a lot of times they're trying to sell marriage. And so they attribute everything good about a person to marriage. Would you agree? Disagree?
What do you mean by that?
So like they'll say that someone's happier because they're married, but happy people are selected for marriage. Who wants to marry a downer, right? They'll say people live longer because they're married. And I think it's because they're fit. People pick fit people. That makes more sense to me.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we can necessarily measure this in the way that you think, just because intuitively, when I think about this, when I think about the United States, correct me if I'm wrong, but the obesity rate is extremely high in the United States. Something like 1 in 3 people are obese. So I don't think, and that would imply to me that most obese people are not being chosen, but that would also mean that like 1/3 of obese people, 1/3 of people in the United States are like not getting married on the basis of the fact that they're fat.
Well, the thing is, women pull the fat plug after they get married.
You mean women like gain weight and then?
Oh, hell yeah! I mean, women
and they like let themselves go.
On average, women gain 25 pounds in the first 5 years of marriage, which maybe
On
at
average,
one
women
point.
get pregnant, and the average weight that you gain when you're pregnant is like 22 pounds or something like that.
Yeah, but I just reject that you have to. I mean, my grandma had
gotta gain weight when you're pregnant.
Well, you can lose it after.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
that's true.
So, I mean, my mom ran a marathon 6 months pregnant. She had like 10.
It also kind of depends on how your pregnancy goes, right? Like, I know people who've had emergency C-sections where they've been in this emergency situation where their child might pass away. So what's had to happen is they've been put under anesthetic, and that baby's been removed from them very quickly. There's not that much room for precision in the surgical process, that kind of thing. And the recovery process is much longer. So it would take like more like 3 years for that woman to lose weight after that kind of situation. So I understand to people.
I just don't like excuses.
I mean, it's not really an excuse. It's just what happens, right? Like, if women get an emergency surgery where they're cut open across their entire stomach area, then the chances are it's going to take longer for them to gain weight than a woman who's had a natural birth with no complications.
Yeah, I don't think there's any nuance. I think if you got to eat less, and that's it. And I used to be pretty overweight, so I can say that firsthand.
But have you been pregnant?
No, but I know people that have, and they got thin after. I know people with really bad pregnancies. So I don't
my
think
point is that it takes longer for people to lose baby weight if they have a traumatic birth, and that's not an excuse. That's just a fact.
Well, it can, yeah, but I would still say that's an excuse.
Okay, why?
Because there's people that don't. There's
many.
people that let things that make excuses, and there's people that don't and just lose the weight and eat less.
Well, it's not an excuse if some people aren't necessarily doing that thing. I think that's not what qualifies an excuse. An excuse is like an unrelated reason as to why something happens. I think there's a direct correlation or a causal link between women taking longer to gain weight, to lose weight, sorry, after having a traumatic birth. I think that's a causal link.
I would just say put the donut down. So
are you seeing that this sounds insane, or
really that you eat less and lose weight?
No, obviously to lose weight you eat less, but also you also have to move more, and it's really difficult to move more if you've had an emergency C-section and you're bedbound for 6 to 7 months.
1,200 calories, you'll still lose weight. Most people.
Yeah, but even that is still a slow process. And also women who
I want to go back to, because we're just going to go back and forth.
Yeah,
you think it's okay for them to state that? I don't, so it's fine. All right, so what do women get out of marriage? Well, I don't, if you answered the question, I can't remember what you said, so forgive me if you did. If you can maybe make in a few sentences, what do they get out of it?
I think that both men and women get benefits from marriage, and there are not that many females.
We'll go into men's, but I just want, when I ask you a question about women, I want to stick to the women, and then we can do men.
By what metric are you asking me? In terms of benefits, do you mean legal protections, for example?
We could go legal protections.
Okay,
anything that they get out of marriage, it could be legal. It could be emotional, whatever comes to your head.
Yeah, sure. I mean, the first thing that I'll qualify is I don't think that marriage is necessarily be all and end all in terms of having a happy and fruitful family. But I do think that women who get married, they do experience legal protections in society, and that those legal protections are probably a good thing when it concerns children. So, for example, let's say two people just cohabit, like a man and a woman are in a relationship and they have a child, but on paper, they're single. What that means is that a custody battle is going to be a lot more difficult for them because they don't have the legal channels through which to navigate that. And I think women are likely to suffer a little bit more in that regard, just insofar as, you might agree with me on a bioessentialist premise that women are more nurturing and have had more of an attachment to their child. So, I mean, you can even go with that as a reason why.
I actually don't agree, but we could actually talk about it later because I'll write down nurturing so I remember to go back.
So you don't think women are naturally more nurturing than men?
Oh, hell no. But we can go back to it later.
So let's start legal. That's super interesting to me.
But okay, well, let's start legal protections. Anything else do women get out of marriage?
I mean, I'm not an ultra proponent of marriage. I just think it's it's a bit of a value neutral thing. And I think overall men are going to benefit a little bit more from marriage than women.
Okay. So how do men benefit from marriage?
Men tend to live longer. And also something I think there was this US survey, and like we say, self-reporting studies are flawed, all that kind of stuff. But at the same time, more married men report being very happy with life compared to unmarried men. So they're more likely to probably experience happiness in a marriage. You can talk about correlation type of factors, but at the same time, I think we can both agree that being in a long-term stable relationship probably leads to the fact that you feel a little bit more happy about yourself, and you feel a little bit more happy about the fact that you're working in a team and that you're collaborating with someone to build something really nice and beautiful, which is a wonderful relationship you have together. So, I mean, we can start there.
Okay. So you think men live longer and are happier because of being attached to a woman, essentially?
No, not necessarily. I wouldn't necessarily pin it on the fact that I wouldn't credit women for it. I would credit partnership for it. I don't think that I'm not that person who's going to say, it's all down to women when men are that happy. So I think there are loads more factors than just their relationships that make someone happy. I would never deny that. But what I would say is, in a partnership, in a loving partnership, in a long-term partnership that is happy and mutual and reciprocal, where you share burdens like on an egalitarian basis, then you're probably going to be happy. So maybe the question is it the case that marriage makes people happy, or is it the case that good marriage makes people happy? You know, I'm not one of those people who has particularly strong views about marriage.
That's fine. I would say that happiness is a skill. And I think it's your own problem to make yourself happy. And a lot of people go into a relationship and try to make it somebody else's problem. I think that happy people are selected for relationships. Have you ever met somebody that's super negative? Who wants to date them? Right?
I mean, I think it's also the case that like minds attract one another. So often you're probably not going to have someone who's super happy all the time date someone who's a downer, but you do have people date each other who are both downers and kind of both have this horrible life together.
So my opinion would be that marriage is a bad deal for men, because men are expected to give their emotional, their physical, their money to women, and they get nothing in return. When they do get married, they tend to get, I'm going to tell you my opinion, then you can go, okay? And then they get a woman who nags. On average, she gains 25 pounds. She'll leave them half the time. So I would say, why should a man get married? And if you give me an answer, please, I would prefer it not be something like happiness or living longer that we can't really prove came from the marriage itself. Go ahead.
Sure. I think it's an interesting claim because there are so many factors that kind of go outside of this. Like, is it the issue that it's to do with getting married, or is it that men are in a relationship with women? Because what I'm hearing is you can probably ascribe all of the issues that you ascribe to being married to also just a man being in a long-term relationship with a woman. So is it the marriage that qualifies it as something that's a miserable deal for men, or is it a relationship with a woman? And insofar as it's just a relationship with a woman, are you advocating that men stop being in relationships with them?
Okay, so I don't tell men what to do, but the challenge you get with marriage is women get the legal protections. And what happens when women get legal protections is they just tend to not be too great with it. They automatically then have the leverage in the relationship. And there are some ways that men are really not protected legally. Like, for example, in California, if a man signs the birth certificate and the kid, he finds out at the age of 5 that the kid isn't his, which is a really sad experience for a guy. I know men that have gone through that, where they thought the child was theirs and it wasn't, right? He still has to pay child support on it. I think that's bullshit, right? I know men that are paying alimony to women that are destroying their lives actively.
Okay,
I think the challenge,
alimony.
The challenge is I'm gonna finish and then I'm gonna let you go. Okay.
Okay.
So the challenge is when you get into marriage, you're getting the state involved, and a lot of women, we can show the worst parts of ourselves when in romantic relationships. I mean, we had, for example, pop songs talking about keying a guy's car. You're younger than me, so you might not remember, but there's like a Carrie Underwood song where she's literally, yeah. And so, you know, female spite is real. And now you're
allowing that people have. How is that specific to women? How is female spite? How does that outweigh male spite? For example, when men get angry, they're more likely to commit a violent crime. Is that not a more dramatic reaction?
I can go into that later, but I'm going to finish this thought. The difference is women can legally destroy men, and men don't have that option generally, unless they get a specific type of judge. But just usually, they're not going to get custody of their kids.
Okay.
They're not going to be able to put the woman on child support. I would say men tend to be benevolent with women, and women are not benevolent the other way around. Go ahead.
So how many men are legally destroying women through things like alimony, if you have to quantify it?
I don't know the exact number off the top of my head. Last I checked, it was 10% of less than 10% of alimony payments around were from women to men.
Okay, so what the facts look like is that about 10 to 15% of any divorce in the US involves any kind of spousal support. So we're already talking about a minority of situations where spousal support, including alimony and child support, are occurring.
Right, but you put yourself at that risk, I think is my point. Like, that's just an extra, even if it's 10%, you know,
and what's the risk?
there was a pill that's had a 10% chance of killing me, I wouldn't take that pill. Do you know what I mean? I wouldn't. I'd be like, I'm good. Well, I could give you examples of, men that have took the risk and it didn't really work out for them.
I mean, I'd rather not you give me examples. I'd rather you quantify it in some capacity.
Well, it kind of sucks because I'm going to. So sorry. So I'll give you an example. There was a guy in Texas who he had his kid legally like transitioned against his will.
Yeah, that's not quantifying it. That's still an individual example. So if you can quantify it, so for example, if I said to you, 400, this is a fact, 400,000 people in the US receive alimony. That's quantifying it.
Oh, actually, I actually have done the numbers. Give me a second to pull it up. It's in a different Google Doc. I can pull it up. But here, keep going, and I'll listen to.
So here's a case that I'll make. It's quite a simple one. 400,000 people in the US are receiving alimony. About 3% of those people are men. That's a very low number. 40% of households have female breadwinners. So that suggests that basically, you're right, hundreds of thousands of men can get alimony, but they don't receive it. Now, if I said to you, I don't have a six-pack, and then you asked me, do you work out? And I said, no. Am I being oppressed? Or do I just organically not have a six-pack? What I would say is that rights in liberal societies have to be like asserted to be realized. Like courts are not mind readers. Just like a job you don't apply for is not going to be offered to you. A legal benefit you don't request is not going to be rewarded. Is not going to be awarded to you. So what I would say is like, if a man is not asking for alimony and fighting for alimony, then he's not.
Oh, okay. Yeah, exactly. But that goes back to my point that men are benevolent. So when they get leverage, they don't tend to ruin their wives' lives.
I think it's more so because they would feel emasculated by
out of 100
receiving money from a woman.
Yeah, so out of 100 marriages, let's see, 50 stay married. So 50 divorce, 15 of those divorces are obscenely malicious on the part of the wife towards the husband. Child alienation, financial ruin, otherwise known as a punitive divorce. 27.5 of those is that the man pays woman a lot of money when she can support herself and get moderately frequent contact with the kids. Still tough, but not malicious. So that's out of 100 divorces. That's going to be...
That's 100 divorces.
No, out of like, that's if there's 100 divorces, that's like the percentage. So 15 out of 100 are going to be obscenely malicious, meaning the guy can't see his kids or he's going to be fighting for custody. 27.5 is that the man.
Custody, it doesn't necessarily mean something's obscenely malicious. There are all kinds of reasons as to why someone might fight for custody, like have to fight for custody, or why someone might reasonably think that they don't want someone to have custody over their children.
Right, but do you really have such a negative opinion of men that you think 15 out of 100 don't deserve to see their kids? Is that your opinion on men? Like,
no, but I think that in family courts, when men do fight for custody, they win 60% of the time. So where's the bias?
Okay, so the reason, do you know why that is? Like why men don't fight for custody?
Because oftentimes there's not really enough evidence for them to make a compelling case. In order to fight for custody, hold on. So, in order to fight for custody,
but see, the challenge I'm getting is I know you're about to spew a bunch of stuff, and I know you don't know what you're talking. And I don't mean this to be rude, but you just haven't done the interviews, and you haven't I would really be surprised.
I don't think that doing an interview makes me more qualified.
Right.
I can interview any random guy off the street. I don't think it makes me more or less qualified. I think what makes me qualified is the fact that I've done the research, and that's a more significant sample size. Like, what do you say is a small sample size?
How much does it cost for a guy to fight for custody of his kids?
Legal fees are expensive for everybody. It costs a lot for a woman to fight for custody too.
Okay, but when I'm going to start with the men, and then we can talk about the women later. It's tough to have a conversation when you're trying to make a point and we're always going to bring it back to the other gender, right?
No, I'm not bringing it back to either gender. I'm saying that people coexist in society. You can't isolate one group of people and then speak solely about the effects on one group.
What is the average amount that you said you did the research? So do you know the answer to this question? How much does it cost to fight for custody?
I don't know.
Okay, so you haven't. And that's fine. I'm not.
No, I've done the research. Okay, legal fees are expensive everywhere. Let's say it's a worker.
It's about $30,000 a year. or $30,000 to fight for custody. And the challenge you get is a lot of these men.
So is
really
fighting for custody
screwed.
something that only men are doing? Is it something that only men are paying for?
A lot of these men are screwed because they're working average jobs. And so a lot of the men that get screwed are blue collar men. And so these are guys that make $35,000, $45,000, $55,000 a year.
Mhm.
And a lot of times the women will empty the bank accounts first and they're kicked out of their house. And so they don't
I'm going to ask you.
They don't have the money to fight for custody. And a lot of lawyers will tell them not to even fight because the court process is going to take so many years and they just don't have the money.
What I would ask you is a really simple question, which is, are legal fees solely exclusive to one gender?
No, but the challenge is you have women's shelters that have they have programs that pay for women. So if you look up like
shelters are for women who've been battered and abused by a man. Do you think battered, abused women should have mutual custody over their children with the man who battered and abused them?
So I do understand where you're coming from, right? I understand that's what you would think, that if a woman's going to an abused shelter, right, that something bad happened. But the challenge is when men are abused, there's no shelters for them to go to.
Because
it's like
men are much less likely to be abused by women.
That's actually not true.
Yes, it is.
That's so. If you look at most abusive cases, they're beating each other. It's just like we said earlier, people with similar traits, they kind of find each other, right? You agree with that? So most of the time,
that doesn't necessarily mean that people who are abusers flock towards one another. People with similar traits might flock to one another, but people who want to beat the shit out of their partner are not. It's oftentimes the opposite.
But here's what I know you don't know, and so I spoke to Erin Pizzi.
No. I know. Oftentimes, when it comes to the dynamics, hold on.
Erin Pizzi. She founded the first men's shelter in London. And she also ran a bunch of women's shelters. She's an expert when it comes to domestic abuse.
That's great.
And from her, you could look her up, right? From her mouth, most abusive people, they just find each other.
Okay, from Karen's mouth. Well, if it's from Karen's mouth, then I mean, what are we to say? Let's look at the facts, right? Based on psychology, it's the fact.
The most abuse. Look, I'm allowing you to come. Look, I'm going to let you go, but you got to let me finish, okay? Most abuse is mutual. When it comes to one-sided abuse, women are more violent than men.
Yeah, so I'm hearing it, and I'm telling you that that's true.
When it comes to abusing infants and the elderly, women, by and large, take that stat.
That's not true. Stepfathers are the most likely person to be abusing a child.
Right, and the woman brought the stepdad into the life.
So it's a woman's fault when a man's abusing a kid?
Yes, that is your fault.
Either way, it's a woman's fault.
No, if it's you are responsible for who you let into your kids' lives. It is many women are
saying that women never bear any responsibility for things. What I'm saying is, you just told me that women overwhelmingly abuse men. I just told you, well, statistically, that's not true. Men overwhelmingly abuse women, including stepfathers abusing kids. It's not the case that overwhelmingly it's mothers abusing kids. Often the most likely predictive factor when it comes to abuse in childhood is having a step parent, specifically a stepfather. So sure, you can say there's some onus on that person for bringing that environment to the child, but it's also the onus on the person who's abusing them, right?
It's about 50-50 when it's just abuse, but if it's just the biological parents, then it's overwhelmingly the mother. Because
that is not true, and you have no soul.
75% of abuse towards children and the elderly are women.
That is not true.
That's absolutely true.
How many men compared to women sexually abuse children?
How many men? Say that again.
How many men compared to women sexually abuse children?
Off the top of my head, I don't know.
It's more men than women.
Okay, so
that's one example that I know off the top of my head without looking anything up and without making something up, without pulling it out of my ass, right? Like, that's something that I actually understand.
Okay.
So that's one way in which I'm disproving your claim.
Okay. Well, I don't think you disproved it, but
I
I'll
mean, I
let
did.
the
You
audience.
told me that
Okay,
that women
that's fine.
overwhelmingly abuse their
That's
kids. I
fine.
said, well, men
Fine.
overwhelmingly sexually abuse their kids
Well,
compared
it-
to women.
well,
So even
women-
in the best case scenario, this is an equalized situation.
Well, I mean, you could take murder, for example, and I'm not talking about abortion. I know the conservatives, like if you look at infanticide, it's overwhelmingly women. The police don't even look for a guy because like they're set that it's like because it's almost always the mother.
Am I allowed to look this up?
Yeah, go ahead. Google infanticide.
Because I attained a bunch of criticism for ostensibly looking things up before.
I don't mind if you look things up. I like to have a conversation, not read an essay.
Mm-hmm.
I know it's a different format, the other one, so I'm not holding it against you.
Okay, this is interesting. So
Infanticide, I'm pulling it up too. Intentionally killing an infant. Wait. Mothers. Man or woman.
So okay, so this is like a best case scenario where we can make this such that it's an equal amount of abuse that is going on. Because let's say we have a higher likelihood, for example, like a mother is more likely to be involved than a father. So if a mother is if there's higher proximity of mothers around a kid more often, then obviously there's going to be a higher rate of like murder, because I don't think that men and women are intrinsically incredibly different enough. I think there are psychos across the gender spectrum, or across both genders, however you want to put it, right? So there's
so they did look at that. They did look at that. And the challenge is, if that were true, as women spent over the last like 50 years, child abuse from women has gone up, not down, even though they've spent less time with their kids. So if that were true, as they spent like less time, the abuse would go down, but it went up. I don't really like giving an excuse for child abuse. I mean, we can, but
it's not an excuse. It's saying that both men and women can be psychopaths and hurt children. I don't think we should qualify it by saying like, oh, well, only like women are intensely more likely to be doing loads of child abuse towards children. So, for example, if we take one metric, which is infanticide, which is a horrible thing, and it's terrible that women are more likely to do it. If we take that one metric and say, therefore, this means that all of this other stuff is not true, then this is like intuitively a silly thing to do. So this is like me saying, okay, well, actually, that infanticide thing doesn't matter at all because more men sexually abuse their kids.
Okay. Well, so I'm going to tie this back into what we were talking about earlier, the nurturing, because it kind of goes together, right? So I actually think women are far more violent than men. And the only
that's not true. Men commit most of the violent crime, like over 90% of violent crime.
That's true, but I'll get to it. So I think that if women had the strength that men did and could actually throw punches, I would be terrified. I would be terrified.
Well, that's not true, because most of the violent crime that men commit is against other men, which means that if women have the same proclivities, they would be committing against other women on an equal playing field. But women aren't murdering other women en masse, like even though they have similar physical strength.
Okay, so the reason I think this is a few reasons. So as I said earlier, the first way I view the world is through real life. That's how I personally come to my conclusions first. Meaning, if you say I have this study that says X, Y, and Z.
And you can just say, oh, well, I heard from Gareth that like this is fake.
Yeah, that's totally fine. And I can understand why other people wouldn't accept that or whatever.
No, it's because like, it's like a bad thing to do.
Okay.
Like scientifically speaking, like it doesn't abide by any of like the normative rules. I
would say it's a good thing, because then you can't be manipulated. Because if someone can
just totally be manipulated by anecdotal evidence,
and it, well, not my experience, but it's totally fine. You don't have to agree, but I'm telling you how I came to my conclusion. Okay.
Sure. So, like, I have to pull you up on this.
The first way that I've come to this conclusion is because seeing how violent women were with me. Women get upset, and the only times I've done street interviews and I've interviewed men, I've even come in London. in places that really weren't the best with controversial signs. And women, men will sit down and they will be calm, talk about their differences. I've had women threaten to attack me. So that's the first way, but that's not the only way that I've come to this conclusion. The second is I like to see who is more likely to murder the innocent. Because when it comes to men, if you look at the murder stats, the majority of men in jail for murder, it was a bar fight gone wrong.
And the majority of women in jail for murder have done it because they've killed their husband who was raping them and abusing them.
Meaning they accidentally killed
Most
somebody.
men in jail for murder are in jail for an accidental bar fight.
Meaning, so it's usually a fight gone wrong. Meaning that
that's still murder. That's still a bad thing.
It's
still
totally wrong.
It's an innocent person still. No one deserves to be murdered like that in cold blood.
Completely wrong. However, I believe that if women had that capacity, it would be far worse. And the reason I think that
you do have that capacity against other women, and you're not seeing it.
The reason, what I look at is what they do with the innocent when it comes to children and the elderly. When you look at abuse towards children and the elderly, it is 75%
women are like 90% of carers, first of all.
You're welcome.
Women are much more likely to be in the care sector. So obviously they're in higher proximity around like the elderly. So it's more likely that you're going to have psychopaths who are women when more women around the elderly are there, full stop, right?
So
they're a companion factor.
I would reject that excuse. I personally will not give an excuse for that.
Work.
You're totally willing. You're totally...
Okay, what's more likely to happen? A random guy goes into a care facility and he's not a care worker for the elderly and he just decides he's going to fucking kill loads of innocent elderly ladies? Or is it more likely that someone who works in the care sector and is also more than likely happens to be a woman, is going to commit a murder? Have you
ever seen interviews with pedos? I hate saying that, but I'm going to use a different word because we're on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh, what word do you call? I'm just going to say, I'm going to say edos because I don't want YouTube to get flagged. Okay. Mm-hmm. When you look at them, a lot of times they'll target certain industries because they have that inclination. Yeah. So if I were going to go down that route, I would say that those people targeted them because they wanted to do that. But I don't think going back and forth about the reasoning is productive. I just look at what they're doing. And if I look at
and that's committing a productive way to understand the world.
Okay, totally fine.
Yeah, and see how a reductive way of understanding the world is not grounded in reality. And instead of saying, well, I'm not going to listen to you when you present me statistics. I'm not going to listen to you when you present me facts.
I totally
get it. You think to an Edo and he told me this. Is actually silly.
Yeah. Totally fine. You think your way of looking at the world is better than mine?
Way.
Totally fine.
It's the way, right? It's the correct way. I have a worldview which is a feminist view, and that is one way. But the way is to use scientific rationality and understanding of statistics and recognition that anecdotes are very difficult to reconcile with one another. That's the way.
I would say that's a little egotistical, but that's
no.
That's fine.
This is not egotistical. This is me. Fine. I mean, men invented the scientific method according to you, so I'm abiding by these Enlightenment rationality values.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about who's more oppressed, men or women. You don't like that question. Is there another way that I'll even give you the floor if you have a better way you want to say it or come at it? Go ahead.
Okay, who's more oppressed? I think I wouldn't necessarily take an issue with the claim necessarily. I would just ask you to qualify what you mean in terms of oppression.
Okay. When I think of oppression, I would say it's having the freedom without the responsibility that comes with it. A way that I would say that men are oppressed, and an example I gave is a woman having the freedom to put a kid on a guy, even on somebody else, and commit paternity fraud. I would say the man that is, I'm trying to say this in a better way. When a guy is a victim of paternity fraud, when he has a child and he has to pay for it, he has the responsibility of it, but it's not his kid. And I would say that's a way that he's oppressed. Go ahead.
Okay. And do you think this outweighs ways that women have been oppressed as well?
Not just that example, but
so what are some examples that would outweigh something that you predict I might say about women being oppressed?
well, I don't know your stuff. I'm just being honest.
Sure,
I don't
let's
know.
think of a typical feminist.
I don't know what you would say because I don't know you that well, but go ahead.
I mean, why don't you just think of a typical feminist and what you believe they understand of oppression? What is something that you would say outweighs all of that stuff in terms of what the cards that men are dealt in society?
Okay. I don't know, but why don't you just tell me what you think and we could talk about it?
Sure. So, I mean, I think that if we take individual examples of anything, I think you're like desperate to hold on to this idea of anecdotal evidence and what you see in the world being more important and more like quantifiable than anything that I present to you. So I think it's a bit of a waste of time to go back and forth with you telling me that you know a guy and me telling you that, like, based on hundreds of thousands of guys, this is like overwhelmingly untrue. So instead, I'll just like list off some reasons why I think that historically women are probably more oppressed.
Okay.
I would say, for example, if we talk about the US, until about 1974, a woman could be denied a credit card or a loan without a male co-signer, a father or a husband. And then we have this act that comes in 1974 that makes it illegal to discriminate based on your sex or your marital status. So what that means is that a lot of living grandmothers, people who are alive today, were adults when women couldn't borrow their own money. Is that oppression?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, and why is that not oppression?
Because now we have women taking out credit cards and they don't pay it off.
Men take out credit cards and they don't pay it off. Should we stop men from taking out credit cards?
80% of the world's debt is owned by women.
And 20% of the world's debt is owned by men.
Right, but I don't like the and like could we start
so
with
women are more likely to shoulder certain burdens within like the home anyway, which probably increases the likelihood that they're going to be the ones shouldering the debt. So for example, like until 1974, it's overwhelmingly the case that like men are signing off on this stuff, and then after that it's overwhelmingly the case that women and mothers are signing off on it, because then it's like responsibility switches over to them. So oftentimes in a partnership, both of them are carrying debt, both of them are carrying a similar amount of debt, but it's more often co-signed within the woman's name, so it looks like women have more debt.
Yeah, I would say if you look at the degrees that women are taking out, it's degrees that don't make any money overwhelmingly.
So you're talking about like college degrees?
Yes, partially. Yes. Master's degrees, it never ends.
Okay. So you think that it's not oppression to tell women what kind of college degree they should do, and to the extent to which they should be taking out credit card loans? I think that the state should be mandating that for women, and that is actually not.
I don't really care what women spend as long as they pay it back. But the problem is now women aren't paying it back. Like
that's kind of like how debt works, right? Like if you have debt, you're probably like struggling to pay it back.
No, because men actually do pay back their debt. Like if you look at men versus women and student debt, men are actually making payments on their debt where women are defaulting. So again, the challenge is women will make a decision and a man always has to bail them out of it.
So, so even if this is true, even if I grant you this, which I wouldn't necessarily grant it to you, do you think that the solution for that is to mandate or legally enforce some kind of thing where women have less freedoms in society on account of what you believe is bad behavior?
I would love to see education get unsubsidized in the United States. I don't know if that's a gendered thing, but women are the ones that mostly do it. I personally... That would be something I would love to see in my lifetime.
Do you think teaching and education is a valuable job?
I'm very excited. Sorry, my audio. It's like this. It's like the cord. Sorry, could you say that one more time?
Do you think that teaching or educating is a valuable job?
Maybe at one point, but nowadays people graduate high school, they can't even read. I'm from Chicago. It's really bad here. It's terrible here.
Do you think that without teachers, we probably have a little bit of a difficult time?
No.
You think that we don't need teachers?
I don't think the teacher, because education is subsidized in the United States, so it's very hard to fire bad teachers. So
That is not what I asked. I asked you, do you think that teaching is is like a valuable job to have in society? So for example, if I taught your child to read, would you be like, oh, that's a good thing, Tilly taught my child to read? Or would you be like, fuck Tilly for teaching my kid to read?
Yeah, well, I think that women became teachers and screwed up the whole system.
Women have like, what?
Teaching used to be majority men in the United States in like the 1800s. It used to be men. And over time, the education system just has gone downhill. And now we literally, like in downtown Chicago, there's people that can't read and they graduate high school.
Yeah, I would probably argue that's because of factors like income inequality, not female teachers.
I would say it's mostly female teachers.
I would say that it like as
hold on.
Which I know that you're kind of.
Wait. I have to say this to stay monetized. Not all women. Not all. Go ahead. Sorry, I do have to say that. I'm trying to stay monetized. Go ahead. That's how much of a protected class women are. I can't even make real generalizations about them without being, without them like cutting my pay. That's how BS this is. Go ahead.
I think that you have a skewed understanding of what oppression means. I think oppression means limiting people's choices to do things, even when you disagree with those choices.
Yeah, I don't mind if people make choices. I don't care at all.
You do mind because you think women shouldn't be allowed to take out credit cards.
No, I think they should pay for their credit cards. And if women actually had to pay back their debt, I don't think
so
women...
what happens in society when someone doesn't pay back their debt? If they're a woman, do they get special treatment?
So and here, sort of, there's whole industries like, right, there's a lot of bankruptcy lawyers in Chicago that make money off of, it's actually quite BS. When I started learning about the process, I was like, I should have did this. But
bankruptcy lawyers are only helping out the women.
If you talk to them, they'll tell you it's mostly women.
Oh, well, if you talk to them, then who am I to argue with you if you've spoken to them?
Well, you're welcome to talk to the ones in London. I don't mind. It'll probably tell you the same thing.
This is the thing, Hannah. Like, we can't solve this conflict. If I say, well, I've spoken to loads of bankruptcy lawyers in London, and they tell me the complete opposite, and then if you tell me, but I've spoken to loads of bankruptcy lawyers in Chicago, who's going to come out on top? If both of us have an equal distribution of anecdotal evidence, who's coming out on top? It's probably someone with the data as well, and I have the data too.
Well, here's the thing. I don't care about winning. I'm just having a conversation. So I'm telling you what I think. You can tell me what you think.
So you'll concede to losing then?
I'll have a conversation with you. I don't winning, losing. I don't care. Okay. Like it's
so like if you don't care, then like you're making some kind of concession.
If you want to take it that way, it's not my problem.
How else do I take it?
You could look at the data too. The majority of bankruptcies are filed by women.
That's not the argument that I'm making. I'm not trying to argue with you about bankruptcy among women.
Okay. Well,
I'm trying to argue with you that telling women that they receive some kind of special treatment and they get to not pay off their debts for the rest of their lives is a silly thing to say, because I don't think the law discriminates in that capacity. I think that a lot of loan sharks, a lot of like issues with credit debt, and that women aren't receiving special treatment when it comes to that, and you have no evidence. Like, how many men versus women? Like, this is crazy.
Finally, Trump has come in and starts garnishing women's wages. So that's been awesome.
What do you mean?
So sometimes there is some out of student loans. So again, because women are the ones defaulting majority on their student loans. So finally, Trump has come in, and I can't remember the law he passed, but basically they can take it out of your bank account now, where before they would just default and you couldn't take it out of their bank account. Thank God.
So do you think this should apply for like, what if men are doing humanities degrees as well?
Yeah, I agree.
So the issue is that you devalue a humanities degree as something that's not necessarily worthwhile?
I don't know anything about a humanities degree, but it doesn't sound like it. I don't know.
Do you know what the humanities means?
I don't know anything about that degree. You're welcome to tell me. But what I would do if I was to analyze that is I would look.
So the humanities is like, so you have STEM, like you have science, technology, engineering, maths. Men are more likely to do this. And then you have humanities subjects. So this is like, I study humanities subject. I study political science with international relations. Okay. You have like economics, that's a humanity. You have English literature.
No, all of these. Okay, I know what you're talking about.
Law is a humanity. So women are more likely to do that. And men are more likely to be doing STEM. But this gap is kind of closing as you see more gender equality happening anyway.
Well, the
So
challenge
is your
is-
issue with the fact that women are doing bad degrees, or is your issue with the fact that like no one should be doing a humanities degree?
I don't care what degree you want to do. I'm looking at the subjects that entails. None of these seem to have a high ROI. So if you don't make the money back and pay back the money, and then society has to bail you out, and they pass things like student loan forgiveness, which comes from our taxes, that's when I have a problem. It is the majority one gender that is doing that, but if a man does it too, I have the same problem.
I think this is also an issue that's really specific to the US, which has extremely inflated tuition fees. So people probably feel that they have much more skin in the game when it comes to mandating what they believe people's personal choices should be. In the United Kingdom, can you guess what our tuition fees look like?
I went to school in the UK.
Oh, you did? So you know
yeah.
firsthand. We are way cheaper than you guys over in the US. And we're more likely, therefore, to get this like ROI situation.
I gotta be honest.
So do you think maybe it's a system of like tuition fees dealing a bad hand, or do you think it's women making bad choices? Because, for example, if you have a woman in like China who goes to pursue a degree in something, that's going to look very different to a woman in America pursuing the same degree. So would you say that it's like a national issue rather than a gender issue?
No, because I didn't really see a difference. Like the girls, and this is what I mean with firsthand experience, right? The women I went to school with, none of them are really working in their field. Like maybe it's because I'm an athlete, but half of them are trainers. They didn't even get jobs in their field.
So, like you went to school, made friends with a bunch of athletes, and then got surprised when they became personal trainers.
I played volleyball in England for 3 years.
And all your friends were like athletes as well?
The people I knew were athletes. Some were friends, some weren't. But,
and then a lot of them ended up going on to become like trainers.
A lot of them, good percent.
I mean,
or like working like service.
A lot of them. I mean, look at those women. Like all of these women becoming personal trainers.
Well, it wasn't just that. It
Crazy?
wasn't just that. It was like serving jobs. Like my point is they weren't working in the field.
So like you made friends with people who are athletes, and then those athletes went on to become personal trainers, and then you're deciding that means women don't use their humanities degrees?
Well, it wouldn't just be that. It would be patterns that I've seen, not just there, but like even in undergrad in the it would be the same thing, different countries, women getting degrees in one thing and not working in that. I mean, what percent of STEM do you think are women? STEM.
That's a good question, actually. I think that we're seeing a little bit more of an even distribution these days of STEM subjects between men and women because gender equality measures have increased. There's less barriers to entry for women nowadays than there was in the past.
It's 22%. And even when they get into the field, like, for example, most female doctors quit before they're 40.
Yeah, most doctors are quite rich by the time they're 40.
No, they're not.
Degrees.
In
America, they have some of the highest wages in the world, doctors.
No, they do have high wages, but they have to pay back. I have a friend who's doing it right now. Like it's going to take.
Doing it. Okay, so women make up 34% of the STEM workforce. So it's not quite as dramatic. And in terms of certain degrees, like women account for more than half in some STEM contexts. So I'm seeing here that it's like women account for quite a. Is this engineering? Yeah, so women are underrepresented in STEM degrees. They're less likely to go for STEM degrees, but I don't think it's quite as dramatic as like 22%. It looks more like 35 to 40%. So it's like a 10 to 15% difference, if that qualifies.
Correct, but the challenge is if you look at how long they stay in the field, most of them quit before the 10-year mark.
Okay, why are they quitting?
They quit because it's harder than they thought, is my take.
Is it that women 10 years into their career are suddenly realizing it's hard, or is it that women 10 years into their career are more likely to have a child?
Well, if you have a kid, they have daycare now, so you can get daycare.
Well, if they've got daycare, I don't really see your point.
And then women,
would you agree that a lot of women end up quitting their job when they have a child, even if there is available?
The thing is most women aren't even having kids. That's why they keep.
A lot of women are having kids.
What's the birth rate's less than 2? What are you talking
about?
I
know loads of women who have kids. So how are you gonna argue with that? I know loads of women, and they actually all have like 10 kids. I used to live across the street from a couple who had 12 kids.
That's crazy. How old were they?
Birth rate statistic and shove it because I know more than you. I know a guy who has 17 kids.
I'm asking you questions. So if that's true, how old were the parents?
The parents were when I was younger, I'm actually gonna go here. You know what? Like, if we're actually using this metric, if we're actually being like insane, I'm gonna go here, right? So I was at the time. This is 8 years ago. So I'm 20 years old. I would have been 12 when I knew this couple who had a bunch of kids. I think they even had a TV show. They owned a pie shop, and their TV show was about how they just had so many fucking kids, and they couldn't stop having kids. And then this was entertaining for people. So this is 8 years ago. The couple would probably they were quite a young couple. They started having kids pretty young, so 40, 45.
Okay, but
why is this relevant?
My point is that actually backs up what I'm saying, because this is when you were 12, right?
Okay.
Yes. Different. Like I'm from a family of 10 kids.
Okay.
So that would actually match up with what I've seen. When I was a kid, I knew a lot of people with 5, 6 kids, but nowadays, not really. Maybe.
Well, I met a guy last week and he had 12 kids. So.
Well, that's possible. Where at? And that's the thing.
This is what I'm trying to tell you. If you just throw an anecdote at me and then you give me some kind of ought from that, if you say like this, therefore we ought to.
Do you know? Okay. Do you know what
random anecdote that you have? Do you understand why I'm like, well, that doesn't make sense because I can just lie to you.
Kelly, do you know what good faith is and bad faith? Do you know what the difference is?
Yeah, and I think that it's a bad faith argument to continue throwing anecdotes at me when I present you with factual information. And that I'm taking your logic like ad absurdum to demonstrate to you that this is an absurd way to argue.
I've been polite to you. Would you agree or disagree? Like, I've let you come on.
I think we've been equally
you
polite
totally
and
have.
amicable with one
Totally
another.
Correct. But when good faith is, I'm not gonna assume that you're lying.
Sure.
Okay.
I don't assume that you're necessarily lying either about anecdotes, but that doesn't mean that anecdotes are
totally. And if you want to keep insinuating, it's totally fine. But I'm telling you what I've seen, and I'm not going to patronize you when you tell me what you've seen. So if you tell me that you've met this person, I'm not going to patronize you either.
What I'm going to say is it doesn't necessarily belong in a conversation where we're thinking about actual broad, sweeping generalizations about society. And the example that I bring is when you told me a bunch of my friends didn't use their humanities degrees. I'm an athlete. I had loads of athletes friends, and then they became personal trainers. Do you understand how that actually doesn't tie into anything about humanities degrees whatsoever? All it ties into is your friend group and who you were friends with. And this is why anecdotes are way more unreliable than studies.
Well, I did see a similar thing because I'm thinking like the girls that studied psychology, there's a lot of them on my team, both in the US and here, and they just didn't seem to work in the field if they did anything in writing, anything and you can say that's not what you've seen. You can tell me what you've seen at Oxford, but there's no need to like patronize me if I'm being polite to you. You know what I mean?
No, I'm not being patronizing at all. I'm just saying it's a silly metric, right? Like, I'm not patronizing you as a person. I'm sure that you have experienced those things, and I'm sure your anecdotes are totally reliable.
Because you could go back and forth. What you do going forward is up to you. I'm just letting you know. Okay, so how do you think? So you think the credit cards were oppressive? What else did you think were oppressive?
No, I think that banning women from having credit cards was oppressive.
Okay, that's totally fine. Was there anything else that you think women were oppressed?
Yeah, I think that women have historically been the victims of violent crime, domestic abuse, violent crime from men towards women, and domestic abuse, and rape, and femicide, and that child marriage is increasing. Like, it's more often to be.
I'm sorry, if you don't mind, I'm going to let you go, but say grape just for YouTube.
Okay.
I tried.
Yes.
Yeah. I didn't tell you that. That's my fault, but just say grape.
That is okay. So yeah. Women are the primary victims of grape, and that includes, for example, warfare. So, for example, grape victims have higher rates of PTSD than veterans. And also, oftentimes, we can take various examples of wars where men have gone and fought in wars, but for every man that has fought in a war, upwards of 3 to 4 women have been raped.
Okay, 3 to 4 women. And where do you find this 3 to 4 women have been raped? I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just wondering.
No, of course. So you have examples like the Republic of the Congo from like 1998. So this is the grape capital of the world.
Okay, cool.
And there are also a lot of active combatants in the Congo. And if you look at these figures, what you'll see is that about 3 to 4 women are raped per man involved in that war in the Congo. So that's
Could you do
what I have.
Favor? And if possible, can we stick to the West? And the reason is because when you start bringing in Africa and these other countries, it's just out of my scope. I don't want to like argue about something I don't know. If you're welcome to like bring that back, but I would primarily love to just stay in the West. Is that possible?
Okay, so can we do Soviet invasion of Germany then?
We can, but I'd really just prefer to keep UK, America. So just the fine, that's fine. The West. I did say the West. That's
you did
fine.
say the West. So
I did.
Like,
I did. Fine. Go ahead.
Sure. Like so in like 1944 and 45, you have 1 to 2 million German women are raped, and the Soviet soldiers in Europe at the time is like 4 million. So this is a case where like you have about 0.5 women raped per soldier. But this is also like something where it's super concentrated among certain divisions, and it's also like disproportionately affecting a bunch of civilian women. So you have soldiers versus civilian women. And like, even if we conservatively generalize from a bunch of case studies, I know you said stick to the West, but if we conservatively generalize like globally, and also if we generalize from wars that happen within the West, even though a lot of wars that happen are proxy wars outside of the West, where Western soldiers then are out, like diffuse across Europe and outside of it so that they can like impose whatever agenda, or they can fight in the war themselves.
And what is your definition of grape? Does that include like, is that like knife to your head, or sorry, knife to, grape, or is this like drunken regret grape? Like what is the,
if someone has sex and then drunkenly regrets having it, then no, obviously they weren't raped. They have regret.
Cool. All right, fine. So my opinion is that men built civilization. Historically, men worked laborious jobs 6 to 7 days a week and went off and died in wars. Women stayed inside. They were teachers. They were secretaries. They raised the kid. They were cleaners.
Women are more likely to be cleaners. Yeah. Let's just.
I do think I'm not pro-grape. That's unfortunate. That did happen in wars. But I would say historically men did have it harder, and women were a protected class, especially in America.
If women were such a protected class, then why were so many women raped as a weapon of war? And why is it that rape victims, who are overwhelmingly women, have higher rates of PTSD than veterans?
Well, PTSD, I would say suicide is a better, because you can kind of, take a survey and do whatever. But if you look at suicide rates of veterans, I mean, more veterans in America have committed suicide than all of the world wars combined. That's
because more men are successful at committing suicide. I know that sounds like a crude way of saying it, but about the same amount as men of women attempt suicide. But it's just that men are more likely to be successful at it because they use more violent methods. Like they're more likely to shoot themselves.
I understand that women also attempt, but I got to look at who's dying here. And
why
does
that matter more?
Well, this is kind of my issue with feminists is I never understand why you guys, when you talk about a men's issue, like that's a terrible thing, right? But we always have to make it about women.
No, of course.
Like I never understood why we can't say, hey, because I have relatives that served, right? And these are guys that like, they went overseas for 20, 30 years. And the stuff they came back with was pretty rough. So I just never understood why we try to minimize men's issues.
I would absolutely never minimize a veteran going through terrible things. I also have relatives who are veterans, and I think that it is a men's issue. And I'm totally like someone who advocates against all unnecessary wars and for justice for men. And I think as much as humanly possible, we should be avoiding conscription and the draft for everybody. I'm definitely not someone who would minimize it. It's just the facts on the ground are that grape has a higher rate of PTSD. That's not saying that PTSD among veterans is like minimal and like not that cool, like not that significant.
Right, but why even bring that up then? You know what I mean?
Because I'm demonstrating, because you asked me a question about how women have been historically more oppressed than men, and I've given you one, and then you've told me that I'm actually just doing a minimization tactic.
Yeah, well, because you guys kind of do. And that's why I keep trying to say when we talk about women and talk about men, let's try to keep it separate if we can. Because I've just noticed whenever I bring up like a men's issue, like if I say, men don't have access to their kids, it's always, well, women don't have access to their kids. Or if I say, hey, men are victims of suicide from war, it's like, well, women have PTSD too.
I think it's because you're using those facts to make prescriptive claims about what women should do in response. Like, I would totally go to a conference or whatever it is and like hear men's stories and listen to them speak about the horrible things that they've been through and empathize with them on the fact that they've experienced this oppression in society. I'm not going to go and show up to a conference where when men men like make these claims, and then from that, what follows is, and also like women's claims should be minimized.
You
Like,
realize,
I
like,
believe in
veterans,
equal footing in that
well,
regard.
well, you realize like veterans are a good percentage of my audience. So, you know, it's like they listen to this, this pretty blonde girl, right? And she's like, yeah, well, women have suicide too. You know,
No, that's not what I'm saying at all. I'm saying that if
Yeah.
you've been raped, that is also like likely to happen during a war. Okay.
Yeah.
So these are things that veterans might also share. So for example, like if you're a veteran and a woman, like you've probably experienced some kind of SA or rape in your life. So there is that. But also it's like I don't understand how a veteran could conclude that I'm minimizing their struggles by saying that rape victims have extremely high rates of PTSD.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is kind of why men don't open up to women because they'll say, I don't know how you could feel that way. Sorry.
No, I'm asking because it doesn't make logical sense. I think this is like an emotional argument.
Well-meaning. I think you're well-meaning, but I'm just telling you how it comes across. Okay. So what else was I gonna? Okay. So you think the grape, I'll give you the grape. You think the majority of women have been graped today? Do you really think that?
No.
Okay. I didn't know if you meant that today. So you don't
But
think
the majority of women have experienced some capacity of sexual harassment. Like if you look at this objectively.
Don't they include catcalling in that?
Is catcalling sexual harassment?
I don't know. You tell me. You would know more than me. I don't know.
Why would I know more than you, Hannah?
Because you brought up sexual harassment. I thought you would know. No?
So do you think that catcalling is sexual harassment?
I don't, but I don't know what the definition is. So I personally.
So if you don't know what sexual harassment is, how can you say that something isn't sexual harassment?
Because I don't know
it. How are we doing this?
Well, I can't quote, what's the definition of anything? I can't quote you the definition of like light or microphone off the top of my head. So I don't know what the dictionary definition is. I'm just saying, personally, it wouldn't offend me. I'd just say no.
Well, I'll give you the definition of sexual harassment. It's harassing someone sexually. And catcalling falls under harassing someone sexually because it's going up to someone and harassing them in a sexual context.
Oh my God. It's no wonder men don't approach anymore. Because who determines the difference between like a harassment and wanted attention? You know what I mean?
No, not really. Could you explain what you mean by that?
Well, men used to catcall because sometimes it worked, right? Some women were into it.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes I walk down the street and a man shouts, "Nice tits, come and get in my car." And I'm like, you know what? Like, I'm gonna get, like, he's got a point, right? Like, catcalling is not something that works. Courting someone works. Going on a date with someone works. Telling someone that they're beautiful and you'd like to take them out works. Shouting nice tits across the street isn't like a foolproof way to prove that you're like marriageable to a woman.
Yeah, but I mean, I have you're gonna say I know a guy, but I do know a guy, and
No.
he approaches. Please. He doesn't say it like that, but he'll say you're beautiful, or like that. But some women, like, even if he's trying to be respectful, they take it the wrong way, and I know him. He's not, he's not trying to harass anybody, but he wants to get a date. So. And
I empathize with that. I think that men should also be a little bit sensitive to the fact that they're much physically stronger than women by a lot of different metrics. And so women are more likely to be intimidated when a man approaches them, telling them that they think they're beautiful or they're very attractive, and that potentially there should be a little bit of sensitivity around that. I think if it's done politely, I would take no issue with being approached and just politely rejecting it and going on with my day and totally fine with that.
Okay.
There's a difference between sexual aggression and just being approached and asked out, and I think there's no issue with that. And I actually would encourage more men to approach women in public. I would encourage the reverse. Like I think that things like dating apps can be a little bit harmful to the dating scene, right?
Okay. So I think that women are a protected class in society. And I want to know, why don't feminists fight for women to do 50% of the manual labor in society? So like construction, plumbing, electrician. Like, why is there only talks of women not being CEOs, but there's never talks of women of women doing construction jobs, for example?
I think there's two things that you can say about this. The first one is that construction is considered a less aspirational job. So most people don't dream of being a construction worker, even men. But the second thing is, like, doing hard jobs doesn't dictate your societal value. And I think that even ultra traditionalist people recognize that. Like, a lot of people who are super conservative and traditional will say women bring just as much value through childcare and nursing and typically female-dominated industries. And maybe even some feminists would agree with that on different grounds. Like, when it comes to social participation, society is about working as a team to achieve things. For example, like, would you say, like, oh, we should encourage, like, men over 40 to go and do construction or work at an oil rig?
I think that if women want equality, that women should do 50% of the hard jobs before they complain about not getting paid the same. Men make 75% of the food supply, 80% of the world's stuff. And there's an economist.
By world's stuff? What is world's stuff?
So there's an economist, and he categorized jobs into basically jobs that if the power went, like, jobs that society could survive without and jobs society couldn't.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like men do. Hold on, actually, I have the book. Do you care if I read it to you? Do you care? Is that all right?
No, I don't care.
Because he's so smart. He came on my show. Contribution to the GDP. Let me see. 1 second. Should have did this before. My bad. But it's just, men do all the jobs where if the lights went out tomorrow, society could not function, is my point. So it's me, like, for example, I have this job, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if I went away tomorrow, a lot of women would be happy. But like, society would be fine.
Okay.
Right? I'm not egotistical enough to think I'm that important.
Okay.
But, I do interviews, and I'll interview men that do construction for 30 years, that do plumbing for 30 years. They're firemen. And these are men that we can't survive without. Like human resources.
Because we've witnessed loads of circumstances when women have survived and adapted to circumstance.
Okay, are you talking about, like, the factory jobs? Is that your point?
I mean, the classic point that feminists make is that during World War II, this has happened already, and society didn't crumble and collapse.
Well, that was factory jobs, though. So they were factories that
they were also building
built.
farms, and they were doing construction, and they were doing difficult jobs. Because if you think about it, if men between the ages of 18 and 39...
What percent of the workforce was women during that time? Was it the majority?
What I would say is that if men between the ages of 18 and 39...
Wait.
No, you can't. You don't just get a shout out.
Was it the majority? I just need this answer from you. Was it the majority?
I don't know if it was a majority, but what I am saying is you told me that if tons of men leave the harder jobs, then society would collapse. During World War II, tons of men, even if it's not the majority, but loads of them between the ages of 18 and 39 went overseas to fight in wars, and society didn't collapse. Even if you're going to tell me, oh, actually, it was a small amount of women who entered the workforce, what they proved was that small amount of women was capable, and also that society didn't collapse. So my point still stands.
What percent of factory workers were women at the time?
Do you see how, even if you give me some statistic, that still doesn't matter, because I've just why my claim still matters and it still happens in here.
Okay. If I said 5%, that wouldn't change. You wouldn't think, okay, maybe they weren't as important as we thought.
Not really, because I've already explained to you why.
Right. Okay, but it was only 25% of women doing those jobs.
So 1 in 4 people. That means that about 1 in 4 men had left and gone to fight wars overseas. If 1 in 4 men did that, and society was fine, then does that not prove my point exactly?
Not at all.
Not at all, because a quarter of people in the workforce doing the difficult jobs, doing the construction, being women and doing it well, such that, for example, England does really well in war when this happens.
Because if the 25% went away, they would be fine. But I think
fine. If 25% of the workforce fucking died, then that would be awful. That would not be fine. Society would totally crumble. 25% of the workforce.
Women love taking credit for men's work.
I'm not taking credit for any man's work. I wasn't there in World War II.
Yeah, I just said men are dying in battle, and running the factories. And you said, but the women did 25% of the factory
You
work.
told me women did 25% of the factory work. I agreed.
I mean, men are like dying. And you're like, well, the women survived without the men.
Because you told me that women can't survive without men. And I told you, yeah, they did.
Women can't. But I'm saying, like, if tomorrow men's jobs disappeared, like, we would be screwed as women. We could
Okay, well,
not
imagine if
operate.
the only people we had left in society were guys who worked the oil rigs. We'd be a
thank
little bit
God.
screwed as well if we didn't have teachers, educators, nurses, midwives, and lawyers.
Oh my God, that would be amazing. There'd be no nagging. Oh my God, I dream
But
about
you'd
a
have
world
like an
like
abundance of fucking oil.
Yeah,
That's
that sounds good. Sounds good. Oil prices have been mad.
yeah, you have an abundance of oil, so your oil price goes down.
Okay, so you think
women are dying
misogyny?
because you've got no more midwives.
Okay, do you mind if I take a break to read super chats? Is that all
I
right
don't mind
with you?
at all. I'm actually
told
super
them
interested to see
to-
how this looks.
I told them to be very respectful. They don't always listen, but if they pay me, I do read it. So I just want you to know it is not personal. I don't think they've said anything rude. If they had, please don't get mad at me. Okay.
I don't get mad
All
easily.
All right. So we got listening to a female is like scratching your fingernails on a chalkboard. Eric, men absolutely dream about working in construction. I would know. I'm a construction manager. Most guys in the field love their jobs, especially difficult ones. Eric, published in 2014 by a U.S. Census Bureau, about 50% of women in STEM leave the workforce or the field in 12 years, usually before 35.
Mm-hmm.
Eric, women find it less gratifying to have a prestigious career than raise kids. They only get high-wage jobs to get in the proximity of wealthy men. Soveria, Bill Foster defends from falling down. Soveria, women are so nurturing, they can't wait to get child support checks, paying for a babysitter to go out to the clubs. Women don't want to stay home for fear of missing out. The attorney, Andrew, the men are married happier right up until the bitch divorces them and takes their kids and their stuff, then they're unmarried and unhappy. Sorry, that was funny.
That's funny.
My wife ballooned during pregnancy from stress eating candies. Now my girlfriend isn't getting big while pregnant. Pregnancy, obesity is just excuses. So Varia, I liked the idea of becoming Muslim, but Bacon won me over having 4 wives. I can slap around silly.
You've got a really intellectual audience.
Let me know when they allow bacon and beer. Eric says, oh wait, I think I read that. Let me refresh it real quick. Do you think you're smarter than them? Was that the point of that comment?
No, I think that saying that he wants a wife to slap around isn't necessarily a particularly intellectual claim to make, nor is pointing out that a wife ballooned in pregnancy, right?
Do people at Oxford have humor? Like, you guys don't think
I told you I found
funny?
it really funny when that guy said that when his wife leaves him and takes all of his shit, then he's going to be unhappy then. I think that's hilarious.
I thought the woman slapping was funny too.
I don't think that one's funny. I mean, not because I'm offended, but because I don't find it funny, right?
Yeah, but it's, like.
And I'm a Cambridge. I'm a Cambridge Pearl.
Yeah,
not
I
Oxford.
get it.
I'm at the superior school.
Sorry. I don't know why. I know you from the Oxford clip, so in my head you go to Oxford.
No, I was in Cambridge at that time. I don't know why people kind of took the Oxford thing and they ran.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So we'll do one more topic because I do have to end at 9. All right, but I would love to have you on again. Okay, so misogyny is the foundation of the modern gender conflict. Can you tell me? I think you sent me that one. Maybe you tell me what you mean by that.
That's an interesting one that you've picked. I wasn't expecting you to necessarily pick this topic.
I can pick a different one. I thought you sent that to me, but if you have one, you can pick the last topic because I think I've picked.
You know what? That's fair because you pick the other topics. I'm going to pick the topic that your audience will hate the most, which is which one will they hate? Which one will garner the most? The most hatred. What would you say? Maybe feminism reduces sex work.
Okay, I'll tell you what I think. Do you, from your worldview, do you include marriage as sex work? I know some feminists, that's how they view it. So is that how you view it?
No, unless it's forced marriage.
Okay, totally fine. So that doesn't. My initial gut reaction is that is not true based on the number of women on OnlyFans, but you can change my mind. I'm going to read a super chat just because it was a big one.
Yep.
It's a little bit invasive. You don't have to answer it. Hey, Pearl, what does she bring to the table and what is her body count? Do you want to answer that?
Oh, no, I don't answer personal questions. I'm a political commentator.
Yeah. I agree, but it's 50, but I'm going to read it. Sorry. Go ahead.
No problem. 50. Okay. So what I would say is...
Tough times. Sorry. Go ahead.
What I would say is that there are loads of avenues through which women leave sex work, okay? And all of these avenues are advocated by feminists. So if you want to reduce sex work, then you should have more liberal values in society. And I'll explain what I mean by that. We have this huge study that I know you hate them, but we have this huge study back in 2020 that basically dictated that an increased access to female formal employment is the strongest statistical factor in reducing entry into sex work. So firstly, we should qualify that women on OF and women who choose sex work are a tiny minority of individuals, even within the West. In multiple countries, across I think 15 plus countries, between 65% at a very conservative estimate and 90% of women said that they would leave sex work if they had a stable income, if they had affordable housing, if they had education and job training. So what I'm saying is, if you want to reduce sex work, then you should encourage more women to be in the workforce, more women to get an education, and should encourage more women to view their power as something that lies outside of sexual appeal to men. And that's something that feminists advocate for all the time.
1.4 million women in the United States are active content creators on OnlyFans. And most of those women
as a percentage of the US population.
No, but if you include women under 35, because let's be honest, it's not like who wants to see
5%. It's something like 5%.
Do you know what? I did the math once on my show and I can't remember off the top.
Yeah, I know you said it was 10%, but you got it wrong because then I did it and it was about half of that.
All right, 5%. That's still a lot, I would say, to be doing that young.
I mean, it depends how you qualify this. Like a lot compared to what?
Okay. I don't know. I just think that's a lot. 5% of women I think it was under 25.
Should we double check this?
You're totally welcome to. When I said it on the show, I don't know if you watched, there was a clip that went viral, but it's unfortunate they cut before where I was like, look, guys, these are the numbers I'm looking at. I'm not sure. This is what I'm seeing.
Yeah.
I think they cut that though. They take clips from it.
Since I'm in the UK, all I'm seeing is the UK figures.
That's totally
which is
fine.
It's 4%. And women between ages 18 and 34 are OnlyFans creators.
Yeah, but I would argue it's a little bit higher. And the reason is because there are women, do you remember a couple of years, you might be too young, 10 years ago, all these influencers got found out to be for sale, or they're getting pooped on in Dubai. Remember that?
Yeah.
Now I'm not saying that that's the majority, but I think we could guess that there's some under the table stuff where women have sex for rent. I had a PI on my show. And that's one of the sex work that he's found is pretty common. So I would guess could we meet at 6-7%?
I mean, we can meet at whatever figure, right? I think that what's important to acknowledge is that it's very difficult to measure sex work because it's illegal in a lot of places. It's highly stigmatized in a lot of places. So people are more likely to keep it a secret, especially in societies that are honor-based, like India. So in India and China, for example, you don't see that particularly high amount of sex work, but there is a lot of sex work and a lot of sex trafficking that occurs.
Yeah, but we're not honor-based in the U.S.
No, we're not, which is why you see the ostensibly more an increase in sex work. But actually, I would argue that it's probably more likely that you see sex workers in places like India, where there's a higher rate of poverty, higher rate of honor-based killings, and limited opportunities for women.
I would argue that women don't do OnlyFans for money, because the average OnlyFans creator makes $150 a month.
Okay.
So to me, I think they do it.
So can you map that conceptually onto my claim that feminism reduces sex work?
And because I think the women that want to be sex workers just like doing that.
I think that OnlyFans creators are a minority of sex workers. Most sex workers don't want to be sex workers, and most sex workers come from the global south.
You think there's more prostitutes than OnlyFans workers?
Factually,
really?
Yes. Yes, this is a total fact.
Okay.
OnlyFans
Um,
models are a minority of sex workers globally and even in the West.
How many prostitutes are there in the United States? I mean, who really cares? I don't
I mean,
think
obviously, it's
so.
going to give you a low figure because it's illegal to be a prostitute in many places across the United States, where it's legal to be an OnlyFans creator. What I would say
but
is,
that's just your guess.
no, it's not my
then? Like,
guess. It's like informed. It's an informed thesis statement.
based on what if they're going to hide it? Do you know
Based
what
on the fact that sex work in one capacity is highly stigmatized and illegal, and if you're doing something illegal, you're probably not going to advertise to the internet or do some kind of study, involve yourself in that, so that you then incriminate yourself.
Okay, it says estimates from 1 to 2 million. Okay. So then my 10% stat was about right if we included the hookers. I think that's maybe what I included at the time. Well, anyways, I don't really care about sex work. I think they go ahead, sell your butthole for $5.99. I really don't care.
Do you think that sex work gives women some kind of power in society?
Yeah, I mean, it allows them to make money for no work, pretty much. I mean, you just have to throw it back.
Okay,
That's not hard.
You just told me they're not making any money.
Well, the ones that do make money make good money.
So
Well,
there's a small cohort of sex workers who are powerful in society, and it's because of the fact that they're female sex workers.
Well, they'll usually do some outrageous content, like Bonnie Blue. She's doing pretty well. I met Lily Phillips actually when I was in. Have you run into her out there?
No, I haven't. I think that red pill rhetoric often treats sexual appeal as like real power, but I don't think this is intuitively true. Because if sexual power is real power, then men are going to have their dicks out on the cover of GQ magazine all the time. But they don't, because they know that sexual power is just one type of power. It's the most volatile and conditional kind of power.
Yeah, I do think that beautiful women get very cool opportunities, I would say.
Sure, but it's reliant on a power that depends entirely on being physically desired by another group. Hence, there are no safety nets. It can be withdrawn at any time, and it functions only within the confines of male approval. Like, it's more difficult for you to take a law degree from someone than it is to revoke your sexual attention, right?
Well, I mean, if they want to get rid of the sexual attention, just get fat. It takes like 6 months.
Sure, exactly. That's what I'm saying, right? The way that you remove if you have all this like perceived power in society, the only like the ways you can remove it is by like becoming overweight, saying something that men don't like, or men collectively deciding they're going to revoke their sexual attention.
You could say anything; they'll still hit if you're pretty enough. They do not care. They don't care at all.
Okay. So this is the thing. Is it easy for women to lose that power, or is it difficult? Because you told me just
say that feminism
getting fat is all it takes for you to lose.
I would say in the past. I would say if we're gonna go from like the 20s to now, I would say there's probably more sex workers now. So I would say feminism increased sex work because it gave women the ability to divorce and leave their husbands, and technology that allows them to do sex work from the comfort of their own home. Men are so nice. They literally built us like phones so you can be a whore at home.
Well, I mean, the first computer programmer was a woman, but I think like to kind of pivot from this and go back to the original claim that I'm making, I think that this type of behavior has existed for thousands of years, especially among women who have narrowly defined choices. Now, sure, you're right, we film it online and the women are beholden to an agency behind the scenes. So, but this is a thing that's always existed. And so you can't claim that the rise has come from feminism, because previously it looks like entire industries dedicated to dividing women based on the fact of whether they were concubines or royalty or peasants. For example, you have like courtesans in imperial China who entertain scholars and emperors in flower houses. You have Renaissance Venice, you have courtesans as famed there, relying on their sexual availability. You have France's Ancien Regime with like Madame de Pompadour, like a super famous example of like a Lily Phillips of the Ancien Regime who wielded this political influence through sex. So I think it makes no sense to make the argument that these people are a product of feminism when it's an archetype that's existed for thousands of years, more often happening thousands of years ago, like at a higher frequency because of
I don't really care, to be honest. Like I think there's always been sex workers. If there's more or less now, it's definitely more out in the open now. And I'd say feminism made that more like them able to function in society.
Well, you just said it was phones. So is it feminism or is it phones?
Well, I'd say both. But it's interesting. You said the first female programmer was a woman. Women care about titles, men care about accomplishment. So it's kind of interesting because whenever it's always like, It's yeah.
I
Well,
mean,
then
think
you would
about
have.
when women were allowed to receive Nobel Peace Prizes, or when women were allowed to receive certain awards in like filmmaking and stuff. We've had to carve out, like, by forcefully fighting for it, the capacity
It's
to
so
even be
funny.
granted an award.
You know what's so funny? Do you know what's so funny? You just brought up awards too. Like men don't care about awards.
Men
Women
don't
do.
care
So
about awards. Can we be real?
funny. It's so
Men
funny you
don't care
brought that.
about achieving things in society and being given credit for it. I thought you spend all day complaining online about the fact that men are never given
Yeah.
enough credit for their achievements.
Well, yeah, but that notice how it's me complaining a woman. It's like on brand.
Oh, okay. And your audience of men like don't give a shit about this. Why are they watching you?
Do you know what's interesting though? Like the first female programmer you're talking about, she never built a computer. She just wrote about the concept.
A
That's it.
computer programmer means you write the
Ada
code.
Ada
Because when you
Lovelace.
build the
Right?
computer, a computer programmer means you write the code. So yeah,
Yeah.
like definition
Ada,
that is.
that's who you're talking about, right? Ada Lovelace.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, she never built a computer. She just wrote about the concept.
Yeah, it's like much harder to invent code than it is to build.
Yeah, I doubt it. This women always want credit. Okay.
Well, no, some
Women
people
always
just have it, right? Like it's not necessarily something that we're begging for. Like if the credit's there, then like it's just there. Like it's just an objective fact.
Well, then why do you have to beg for it?
I'm
Like
not begging for it.
that's
I'm just stating a fact.
that's what like feminism is. It's you guys like saying give us more credit, but if you were that good, we would just see it. You wouldn't have to beg for it.
Well, I don't think that's true.
It
How
is
do you
true.
how do you evidence that?
I know pretty productive men, not so much women.
Oh, okay, so we're back to the start. Your
yeah.
evidence is I know a guy.
Well, I could give a public example. Like, for example, Donald Trump. I'm going to use right-leaning ones because I like them, obviously. He's just productive. He doesn't have to go around saying he's productive. He just is. Elon
Donald
Musk,
Trump
same
doesn't have
thing.
to go around saying he's productive. Donald Trump says he's the most productive man in the history of America. Donald Trump's favorite president is himself.
Yeah,
Donald Trump is
there's
quoted
just
saying that he's
the
the least
nag-
racist
the
man and the least
nagging-
sexist man and
the
the best
nag,
man
it's
and
never
the best
ending.
president. His entire press conference is like a soap
I
opera.
think
I don't know
women-
what
I
you're
think
talking
women's
about.
dating is just endless nagging. Sorry.
I think Donald Trump is
I
like
think
the
you mean
weirdest
well.
example to bring up when you think about someone who's not self-aggrandizing.
Okay, well, that's the 2 hours. I did enjoy this. I think you're nice, girl. So I did enjoy this. And if you would like, you're welcome to come back on the show and I want to argue some more. Or would you like to come back or are you traumatized?
No, I'm not traumatized. I thought your comments would be much worse. I mean,
All
I
right.
thought your super chats.
No, I think, I think a lot of my stuff isn't as, I don't really care about the sex work though. If it was more now or then, be a hooker. I don't care anymore.
I mean, they don't really call it the youngest profession in the world, do they?
No, they've forever. Well, do you have any final thoughts? Can they find you anywhere?
Yeah, my final thoughts are I mean, if you want to send me some hate comments or mass report my account, then you can find me at Blonde Praxis on TikTok. And I think that Pearl should maybe think about the fact that some of her views are actually less progressive than organizations like the Taliban. That and potentially like we should think about the implications of that, right? Because like I was going through some quotes from the Taliban Minister of Justice, for example, who was speaking about how like women wanting to work may cause them to commit suicide, or like if a woman wants to work away from her home and with men, then that's like against their culture. And I think that insofar as Pearl would agree with that, she's aligning herself with like some pretty insidious organizations.
I think women should work. I don't have a problem with women working.
Okay. And
I don't.
that's something interesting we can debate about next time.
I would love to see more women work. Actually, I think we're pretty lazy.
So we got to work
But
the oil rigs, and we got to raise our kids. And
no, seriously, I would love to see women on the oil rigs. So,
okay. Well, I'll see you next week at the oil rig, Pearl. It was great talking to you.
Sure. We can go. All right. Thanks for coming on. I do appreciate a good back and forth.
Yeah.
Anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching tonight. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. And if you have a topic you want us to debate next time, put it in the comments and we'll set it up. Like the video, subscribe, and we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye. Thank you, Tilly.
No problem. No problem.
Nice to meet you, okay?
Nice to meet you too. So I've never been like, do I just end this now? Like I end the stream?
Yeah, you can just like leave the Zoom, but you're welcome to use clips on your TikTok or whatever. I don't really care. So
Okay, cool.
just if you can, just tell them to find it on my YouTube, but
Yeah.
I'm not going to police you about it. So cool.
Okay. Bye.
All right, bye-bye.
Okay, how do I actually? Okay, that sounds good. Okay, bye. Okay, I think he ended the meeting. How do we think that it went? Oh, hold on. I think I meant to end the Zoom as well, because he says he was going to end it, but I don't know if he did. I'm trying to end the meeting, but I don't know how to. Yeah, no, I know I'm still live. I know I'm still live. I was asking everybody how you think that it went. I think it was less heated than I imagined it would be, and it was more of a case of where I just had a bit of a laugh and a bit of a giggle. And I'm surprised the super chats were very tame. I mean, I've seen some of the whatever podcast people, their super chats are abhorrent and awful, and mine were actually not. Like, I can't imagine what the comments on her stream was. They were probably pretty bad, but I mean, I don't think this was too bad. Okay. What was her chat saying? What was the chat saying on her stream? Pearl asking if I'd be traumatized. Okay, the body count. Okay. Okay, guys, I have this like morbid curiosity about it. Okay. Women hating. You were in that chat for the whole day. Well, what did you see? What were they saying? This is like having access to people who know what people are saying about you behind your back. So like, I gotta know. A Muslim extremist. Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay, I talk too fast and I'm a Muslim extremist. This doesn't sound bad. The speed of my speech. Yeah. Oh, yeah, I know the whole Zoom meeting, the chat was open and I couldn't find the actual thing to close it. They thought I lost a lot of arguments and never answered Pearl's questions. Okay. What? I guess they have moderators who are blocking people who potentially were on my side as well. Yeah. They hate the phone with the Charlie Kirk debate. Yeah, they do hate that. They hate that. That's why I'm no longer doing the phone notes. I'm elitist. Okay. They called us your simps. Some commented on your looks. Yeah, I feel this is the thing. Like, I find it really hard to interrupt people, and I know that Pearl interrupts people a lot. And it was like I was cringing interrupting her, but I felt like I sometimes had to do it. Fan of Pearl, but you did great. I think that's quite rare for someone to reach across the pond and from someone who's like red pill and tell a feminist they did well. So, I mean, respect in a way. Yeah, I think it was kind of, in a way, it was disappointing because like I was hoping that it would get a bit more fiery, but I just didn't get there. Like, I've seen some of her debates with Destiny, where they end up just devolving into this hilarious argument. And I would, in some capacity, like I think it's kind of funny when that happens, and it does make for some good content, and it does make it look more ridiculous. Her microphone was louder on both streams, so it was allowing her to talk over you more. I didn't notice that. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I know. I said I don't know once in that debate, so obviously I'm good. I mean, Pearl didn't know what a humanities degree was. She was like, women get all these useless degrees, and I was like humanities degrees, and she goes like, I don't know what humanities is. You know what? No need to fight those men in that chat. I'm not speaking to those men who are regularly tuning in to Pearl Davis. They can say whatever they want. It's not something that particularly affects me. Otherwise, I wouldn't have signed up to come on here and debate. I'm so surprised that so many people actually tuned in here as well. It was nice because every time I was getting pissed off, I could just look at the chat where people were like way more pissed off than me. So it was kind of like grounding. Would I want to debate her again? Like, I thought that it would be more fruitful, right? Like, not in terms of like, oh, I would change her mind or I would educate her. I just thought that that she had some weak points, and we spent so much time circling around whether or not anecdotes are a way to do literally anything. Yeah, I don't think it was a debate. I think I asked to debate her, and then she said yes, and then she qualified loads of times. This is not a debate. Like, it's a conversation. I swear it's a conversation. It's not a debate. So I think that whole quote debate was just her saying like, I know a guy, and me saying, well, what if I said I know a guy? Yeah, I know I got to debate some crazy men, but crazy men require me to have a little bit more security and also some more internet savvy habits. Oh, that's a good point. If you frame studies as a collection of anecdotes, that's true, right? Studies are a collated list of people's experiences that are then mapped onto some kind of outcome. You're too nice. That's probably why it didn't turn heated. I always feel like I'm too mean. Yeah, she thought, yeah, I did get the impression she thought humanities was like one single degree. Yeah, it did feel more like she was trying to interview me. I think she was trying to do that whole Socratic dialogue thing, but she was doing it badly, so it was just her asking a bunch of random questions. Yeah. Yeah, when she was saying it's elitist of me to say that like the way to do things is not by saying that you know someone. When she laughed at the joke of slapping women around. Yeah. It's like, I feel like sometimes conservatives don't understand that I'm not offended, but it's also not funny. Like, the punchline of slapping a woman around, it's like, in some context, maybe I would find that a humorous joke. But, like, if you deliver a joke badly, then you just told a bad joke. Like, I'm not a woke lib. I just didn't find it funny, right? Like, in the same way that I don't find knock-knock jokes funny. Yeah, I think one of the best moments, to be fair, was when she was saying, like, none of my friends are using their degrees, and also all of my friends are athletes who became personal trainers, and so like women don't use their degrees. Yeah. No, I mean, no, it's not a funny. It's obviously not a funny thing to say, right? Like, but I'm also very much used to that from those red pill people, so it doesn't phase me, even though it's not funny, and it obviously is offensive. Yeah, I gave her loads of I researched loads of examples throughout history. Like, I was willing to pull out the pretentious examples of like Madame de Pompadour. Like, I was doing it, but like, yeah. Yeah, when she said, let's stick to the West, and then she said, let's stick to the US, and then she said, let's stick to Chicago. I was like, well, you want me to stick to your house as well? Yeah, it was disappointing because I think she was worried about engaging in a debate. So she consistently tried to turn it into this like innocent conversation where she was just asking questions. And therefore, when I started trying to debate, she was like, well, you're a nagging woman. The abuse of the elderly. Yeah, I just... And when she was saying that, like, women who don't lose weight quick enough after having a traumatic birth are actually making excuses. But I think, like, it's difficult for me to get super phased by it, so I hope I didn't come across as someone who was really phased. Because, like, objectively I wasn't, but I was also thinking, like, are other people going to take this in a way as I was phased? Because I was trying to make my point. Mm-hmm. Yeah, she was like, women who have had an emergency C-section and want to lose the baby weight need to lie in bed and starve themselves like Gandhi so that they lose the weight quick enough. I was like, okay. So why she feels like a spokesperson for men. Yeah, exactly. She doesn't represent the majority of men. But even with the alimony stuff, like, the majority of men aren't concerned particularly about alimony because it only impacts people who have vastly different earning potential to each other. And most people marry within their own social class. So it's like she does advocate for a minority of men, and within that minority, a very fringe minority who are extremely worried about women taking their stuff. Sources for most women being violent was that most women she interacts with don't like her. Yeah. I fear that if I upload notes and sources, I'm just going to get an influx of comments accusing me of cheating. Yeah, most of her information was, I know a guy. But it also means that it can't go anywhere. Yeah, I was hoping she'd bring up the draft so that I could say, like, because men doing hard jobs is not a qualifier of how good they should, what their role should be in society, because disabled men can't do hard jobs. Men over 40 can't get drafted. Men who are asthmatic can dodge the draft. Like, should they not receive the right to vote? Should they not have the equal participation rights in society? Like, there's loads of groups of people who don't engage in that. But I feel like she was trying to avoid the classic things like the draft and voting. When I brought up an anecdote, I was just called out lying. I think the point is anyone can just pull things from anywhere. That was the point I was making. And but like it's really hard to just to make up some elaborate thing when you're concerning like, oh, there's this study of like 200,000 people, whatever. Yeah, and the story, I didn't even lie with my anecdote. Like, I used to live across the street from a man and a woman who had 22 children. Like, this is actually true. And they had a TV show and they had a pie shop. Like, the whole thing is true as well. Like, it's an insane thing. Like, to have experienced it, like to have lived nearby. Like, it's such a fringe experience, but I actually had it and it wasn't even a lie. Yeah, she wanted me to define grape. And she was like, if someone has sex and regrets it, is it grape? And I think, obviously, I know that she's dog whistling by saying that, like, intoxicated grape doesn't count, which it obviously does. But I wasn't even going to go there. Like, I just took it at face value at its most charitable. And I was like, if you have a drunken night and you regret that afterwards, then it's probably just a regret. And it's not, like, not great. Like, because objectively that's true. But I know she was dog whistling something else. Yeah, the marriage thing, I was like, get married. Like, I operate at within some capacity at like a middle ground on marriage. Like, I understand that there's a lot of child marriage and that's a terrible problem, that historically women were married off in exchange for like transactional things, and that's really bad. But marriage today can be super fruitful and good in terms of legal protections and partnership. So I think she was desperately trying to lead me down the alimony thing, and but ultimately it's like a silly argument, because legal fees aren't exclusive to one gender, and you can't complain that you're not about the alimony gap if you're never asking for alimony. Yeah, she defines the West as the UK and the USA. Yeah, and to say, oh, like she had her phone out in the Charlie Kirk debate, and then be looking things up like every 5 seconds. In the Charlie Kirk debate, I wasn't even looking things up. I just had notes, because in competitive debate, it is cheating to look things up, which is why, like, when I engage in this politics online, it's a bit foreign to me that people are looking things up. So I'm like, okay, well, I'll ask for permission, and if this is a thing that we're both mutually doing, like, we can look things up together. When she denied that most men commit violent crime and that the OF official stats were actually higher. Yeah. Did she say Africa was a country? Did she actually say that? Oh dear. I think that, to be fair, she was a lot more polite than I thought. Like, she said that she thinks I'm a nice girl. She didn't. I guess that was nice. I don't know what her tweets will say. Like, I don't know what her clips will show. I don't know what her editing, her splicing will look like. I'm sure that's not going to be as favorable. But at least throughout the quote unquote conversation, she was like more amicable than the average Red Pill guy. Or maybe I just don't really listen to what people's decorum is like because I'm too focused on the arguments. I don't know. Like, I'm not saying she was really great, like, and that she was super nice to me, but I'm just saying it was nicer than I expected it to be. Because I thought she would push me on super personal. She pushed me. She'd be like, "What's your body count? Like, what do you bring to the table? Like all this type of stuff. Like the super chat. I thought she would push it a lot." I also, for the record, wasn't looking at her the whole time. Like I was looking at myself, so I didn't know what facial expression she was making. I don't know if she's rolling her eyes. I don't know. Are there moments you want to use for TikTok? I honestly don't know. Like, I'm gonna clip some. I don't think they're gonna do super well because I just think that she didn't engage. Like, maybe if you guys have suggestions for what you think other people would want to see from the debate, like if they missed it. She rolled her eyes a lot. To be fair, I rolled my eyes. Yeah, I think Pearl, I think it was a little boring. I think Pearl does really well in clipped short form content, but to sit for an hour and just explain to her why it's actually not elitist to say that solely relying on anecdotes is an insane way of doing politics was like a little bit boring. Yeah, no energy. I thought so. I thought she brings the energy to other debates, and she was flatlining. Yeah, she'll probably use a bit where I go silent for a minute and I'm thinking things through, and then clip it before I respond. Right. So she'll be like, "Oh, did you know this?" And I'm like, "No, I didn't know this." And then I like kind of don't, and then the response like doesn't get there. Who am I debating next? The next debate I'm not having a debate with someone next for a while. I think that the next one I have is later this month. I don't know if I can talk about it yet. I think she was planning on rage baiting you, and so had to keep nice to try and juxtapose your rage with her calm reason. But it didn't really work. Yeah, because that's the thing. It's like, okay, this is what I think happened. What I think happened was that she was expecting me to get really angry with her, because in the Charlie Kirk debate, I was like, my adrenaline was going crazy because it was like a live audience, and I was like, okay, like I have to do well, otherwise I'm gonna get clipped. And like I'm gonna go so viral, and it's gonna be terrible. Like if I get clipped really badly. So I was like a little bit more intense. But when I'm sat on this chair and I'm debating, and also I understand that the point is I have to remain composed, even when I'm delivering something that's an emotional argument, even when I'm like postulating, you know what I mean? Like I'm someone who comes across as passionate, regardless of whether or not I'm particularly emotional. But I think because Pearl was consistently trying to appear calmer than me, and I was reasonably calm, what ended up happening was she was like barely letting the words come out of her mouth because she was so calm. I like a professor in the chair. Yeah, I like the chair. She was wanting to clip you being angry and splice it with her being nonchalant and saying that, "Oh, I don't care." Yeah. Yeah, exactly. When she pulled out that book, what did she want to read? I don't know. She couldn't find the page. I think she was pulling up some text about. I can't actually remember what it was. Yeah, when she's like, "Women want all the credit for awards," and I'm like, who has won? Like who is desperate for credit for awards? Like, is it more like to be men or women? And this isn't even, there's a thing where she's desperately trying to make me demonize men. She's saying a bunch of things that are horrible about women, so that I in turn say, but men, but men. Yeah, Donald Trump is an example of someone who doesn't give a shit about awards. Like in literally a press conference, someone asked Caroline Levitt, who do you think is Donald Trump's favorite? Like, who did Donald Trump say his favorite president was? And Caroline Levitt said, Donald Trump said his favorite president is himself. Like, regardless of whether you're anti-Trump, you can't say he's humble. Even if you're MAGA, you know he's not humble. I mean, he said something about how he's the most modest person in America or something. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's like my job isn't to go into these podcast spaces and shit on men. And she tried really hard to get me to shit on men. She tried really hard to get me to pick a side when it came to like veterans and grape survivors. Like, obviously, I'm not going to do that. That would do a nice clip for TikTok. Trump being humble, improving women won awards. Would you go on the Whatever podcast? So this is so interesting. Like, they initially wouldn't cover me and a chaperone for like security reasons, right? Like, I wouldn't want to go alone. They initially wouldn't cover it. And I was like, okay, well, thank you for the offer, but I'm not going to come on. And then someone said in one of my comments, oh, debate Andrew Wilson. Andrew Wilson would destroy you. And I said, Andrew Wilson is too broke to cover my flight to the US. And then, like, within hours of that message, I got a message saying, like, we'd be willing to cover the airfare for your +1 and yourself, and we'd get you a room as well. But the issue is, I don't trust that, because I know there are multiple influencers who've messaged me telling me that they don't get paid up front, and then after the podcast they don't get paid at all, and then they're thousands of dollars out after having traveled a long time to visit them. So unless I get upfront payment, which I don't think they're going to give, then I won't go on it, because I don't want to get scammed. I also think I need better security before I go on the Whatever podcast, because of the nature of the threats that you receive after going on it. So it's something that I'd maybe consider in the future. Why don't they just debate you online? It's a good question. I think they part of the psychological effect for women of going on the podcast is that they're there in person, because then they get these threatening super chats that explain what those men want to do to the women, and in person they have to react to that live. It's much more of a different, like, visceral feeling to react to someone telling you what they want to do to you in an explicit context in person than it is online. So I think that's probably why they would want me there in person, because it's easier to throw someone off. Like, if you scream in someone's face, if you laugh at someone, if you intimidate them physically while you're in front of them, then it's much more easy to get them upset and belittle them and intimidate them than it is if you're debating online. Yeah, and it's also a fact of you going onto their turf, I think, which means that you're already on the back foot. Yeah, I don't know. I think I am a bit torn about the podcast anyway, because going onto a podcast with a group of men who don't understand consent as a young woman, probably not the best idea until I have a security, like 3 security guards, right? By now, yeah, I am sleepy. I'm probably going to end the the stream now and sit and think about how dull that was and how I was trying to make it interesting, but it failed. So I'm gonna end the stream. It was nice, and I didn't expect so many people to tune in and to receive so many nice comments. And yeah, thank you for joining in. And you'll probably see some really dull, boring clips on TikTok tomorrow. Bye.